Back to the starting lineup with Scott Purrier, Ned Reynolds, and Art Haynes on your home for the St. Louis Cardinals. 102.1 The One.
And we are back with the starting lineup brought to you by Play It Again Sports, by Citizens Bank at Rogersville, by Swing Right Golf, and by Marshfield Chevrolet. Ned Reynolds along with
Scott Purrier
and Art Haynes.
And our special guest on the line, as he is each Tuesday morning at 8:30, talking racing with us, Racing Dirt's Trenton Berry. Good morning, T-Bear.
Hey, good morning. Glad to be with you guys.
We know you live, sleep, eat, breathe, die Chiefs football. We were just talking about that in the last segment. Your thoughts on pretty much everything that transpired yesterday with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, so I thought first off, late Sunday afternoon, Diana Rossini and there was another reporter they got linked to an article that Travis Kelce might not re-sign with the Chiefs and that he was going to test the market. And I went back to thinking, I told Ashley at the time, I said, this is trash right here. Kelce said 2 years ago that he's not going to play for anybody but Andy Reid, and if Andy left, he would be done playing football. So once we figured out he was going to come back, it was a foregone conclusion he was going to be with the Chiefs. And you know what? I'm so pumped that he's going to get one last send off here and kind of make his exit out of the sport. Hopefully with a good long run in the playoffs. Because I'd say in a perfect world, all things being equal, last year could have easily been it for him if things would have went a little better. But I love the fact that he's going to come back and do it again, and I'm excited for our new running back too, man. I think that'll be a good move forward. We talked about last week, and I think it was off the air. Hey, who do you want the Chiefs to get for a running back? And I said, well, I don't really care. I just like them to get somebody they feel confident they can use that can get the job done. And Pacheco was never the same as he came back from his injury, so I'm excited to see what's in store there for the Chiefs. And they figured out how to make some things happen. Obviously, it was at the expense of McDuffie. He was kind of the cap casualty, and I think everybody unanimously hates that. But they got a heck of a haul for him, and I continue to say because of that strict adherence to the salary cap with no leeway, that is what makes the NFL the best sport in the country.
And it's also going to be a contributing factor in the baseball talks. It'll hopefully have gotten underway. Yep. But, hey, that's all where it lies, all about the money and who's going to get it. Let's talk a little bit about the race. You have to think that Blaney absolutely loves this course out in the Phoenix area because he won the championship there last year.
Yeah, and he's been in the top 5, 8 of the 9 races they've ran there, the last ones they've ran. I mean, he's been unbelievable there. Now, I'm not going to say he's been unbeatable because he's been beaten, but he's had an unbelievable track record there. The Penske cars have too. They were really good, and the past several years that was where they decided the NASCAR championship that came down to that single race. And no question that was kind of a contributing factor to some of Penske's success at the end of these seasons. It's going to go back to Miami this year, so they made a little bit of a change there, which I think is probably good to keep that final race moving around. But, Blaney's he's incredible, and there was such drama there at the end. They had that yellow and had that restart with about 25 laps to go. Everybody came down and pitted, and it was 2 tires or 4. And a couple of factors there. Teams last fall were running lower air pressure than was recommended by Goodyear, so they had some tire problems. Plus, they also went up 80 horse. This was a 750 horse race, whereas it had been a 670 horse race previously. So tire wear was going to definitely be in effect, and so you had to figure out if you were going to pit for 2 or 4 tires. And Christopher Bell pitted for 4, just like Denny Hamlin pitted for 4 last fall late in the race, and it didn't ultimately work out for either one of them. Bell did have a better run up through there. I mean, he got back up to second, but ultimately Ryan Blaney was the man with the plan. And Penske had a great weekend. They won the IndyCar race the day before right there at the same track too. So it's a great time to be a fan of Roger Penske this weekend.
So Trenton, Las Vegas this week, and of course all sports are going to Vegas now. I think we'll have a lacrosse championship there pretty soon, but that's a fairly new venue for the NASCAR Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's been around about 20-some years. So Vegas was part of that. It was part of that expansion around that era when Kansas Speedway was built in Chicago, and it's a Speedway Motorsports track, which was formerly Bruton Smith. His son Marcus Smith heads up Speedway Motorsports now, so it's kind of part of that empire. Great racetrack. It's had a ton of good races. I believe, man, I'm not 100% on this, but I believe Mark Martin actually won the first Cup race at Las Vegas. I'll look back on that. I'm not 100%, but I believe that to be true. It's a good one. They've got the drag strip there. They've got a short track asphalt track. They got a dirt track there. They got it going on. Vegas is fun. It's a mainstay on the schedule, an important one, and it's one they'll have to come back to later in the year as well.
Trenton, with me, you're going to get NASCAR for Dummies questions because I'm learning as we go. What is I
love these.
Yeah, what is the purpose of having stages in a race versus just going out there and doing all the laps at once?
Sure. So I would say that first off, I'm not necessarily so much of a racing traditionalist, but I do like some of the traditionalist features. I don't love stage racing. I understand why they did it, and the main reason that they did it was to increase intrigue through the middle part of the race. So for years people would call it nap car. They'd say, let's get started, take a nap, come back and catch the last 40-50 laps to the checkers. And this definitely has added some intrigue to the middle of these races. I will tell you this too. I think maybe an unintended benefit of it is they finish the stage, they take a commercial break, they come back, they pit the race cars. Those laps don't count towards the race. They get another commercial break in. There's a big ad block in between those stages as well that really helps on the media side of things. And whether you like it or not, that's how the races are paid for. So it has to happen. You do lose less green flag laps than you used to because of this. So I think overall that's probably a positive too. It manufactures a little bit of intrigue, and now by doing that, the system they put in place awards championship points at the end of those stages for your top 10 finishers. So they do have quite a bit on the line in each of these stages, and it has made the middle more exciting. I don't necessarily love manufacturing racing. I feel like if your product's good enough to stand on its own 2 feet and you have the right program in place, you don't need to manufacture racing. There's other things they can do, like in dirt track racing, there's all sorts of qualifying procedures and lineup formats and things. And one of the common things around dirt racing here all the time is man, why does so-and-so why do they have to go manufacture their show? Just let it play out. So there's no question NASCAR's they've manufactured a little bit, but that's the world that we're in. And I certainly don't hate it, and it has made the middle of the races more exciting. It did throw a new wrinkle in a few years ago when they went to it.
Trenton, let's ask a question about the rhythm of the drivers, though, because the leader at the end of each stage is still the leader of the race, but they're starting from a new position, so to speak. Does that take away any at all from the strategy that these drivers use?
Oh, there's no question, because your pit stops, the stage break pit stops are totally different. So yeah, I think it does for sure. And as we've seen over the years, it used to be, way back right after they were done running moonshine and they got this thing all started, they just got to get their buddies together to go pit these race cars. And now, one of the biggest changes over the past several years is, they not only have pit crew coaches, but the majority of these guys that jump over the wall to pit these cars in about 9 seconds now, most of them are former Division I athletes, chief among them being former SEC and ACC college football players. There's some basketball players and whatnot in that as well, and athletes from all sorts of walks of life. But by and large, the former Division I athletes are the ones that are jumping over the wall to get these cars off and on pit road. And they've done that because they realized that there was a spot for a competitive advantage right there. So yeah, I think certainly I don't know that it's hindered that dynamic, because ultimately that last stage is going to be long enough that you're going to have to do a thing or two right, better than somebody else to win the race. And that's going to be a pit stop somewhere stacked in there sometimes too. Obviously, it depends on tire and fuel wear and how the race has progressed. So not bad, not hindered or compromised, just changed.
Arthur?
Trenton, I know your shows got rained out in Texas last weekend.
Yeah.
You got to go to the Bears basketball game instead. But what do you have going on this weekend?
Well, so I'm headed to Rochester, Minnesota. This is my final weekend before we go race. So I have a trade show. You know, we have our big national industry trade show for the motorsports world in Indianapolis the second week in December every single year, and that gets the entire country together. But there's there's different groups of, I would say, regional type events that get the industry together. And so, you know, you're thinking like trade show, that's off-season stuff. We're ready to race around here, and which we are. They're going to be racing this weekend they're in town at Springfield Raceway. But, you know, when you're talking about Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, that general area, some of the Dakotas, they're not really going to get racing until middle to end of May, most places. Now, you might be able to sneak a show in here or there, but their season doesn't really start until Memorial Day weekend. So it's still very much the off season there. And we got a lot of great partners and friends that are in that region. We operate a regional touring series for dirt modifieds that particularly runs in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa. So just a chance to get together with that group of people here. I got a trade show this week, so I'll be headed that direction.
Trenton, I'm intrigued by this Grand Prix of Arlington down in Texas this weekend.
Yep.
As everybody corrected me, it is an IndyCar race. That's got to take some logistically huge amount of planning to drive a 2.73 mile track around Jerry Jones Stadium, around the Ranger Stadium. Are you intrigued to watch this and see how that plays out down in an area where a lot of us are familiar with?
So I am. And what the crazy thing is those streets that's going to be on, I mean, you can't even hardly drive through those during the day. I mean, it's bumper to bumper gridlock traffic. So, yes, I'm very intrigued to see this. And I love when these sanctioning bodies go to these new cities and try these things. And, you know, the thing about the street course like this, it's probably not going to be a 10 or 15 year thing. I'm sure they signed a contract with whatever the local sports commission is there and Texas Department of Tourism and whatever those public entities are to put an agreement in place to be able to do this, to drive some capital in the area. And yeah, I think they've played out very well. You know, Vegas has an F1 race that's on the streets. Miami has an F1 race that's on the streets. NASCAR raced in Chicago on the streets. NASCAR's going to San Diego to Coronado Island this summer for their race. And I love these street races, and I'm very excited to see how they do it in Texas. Nashville had a street race in the past as well with IndyCar. So they have a track record of doing this and a track record of success. I'm excited to see Dallas be the next city that gets highlighted.
Hey, Trenton, I remember when I was in Dallas working in the early 80s, they had a Grand Prix race at the fairgrounds around the Cotton Bowl and various venues. And I got to take my little Olds Cutlass and drive around it one time.
Wonderful.
on an off day, before it got started. So yeah, that was fun, but intriguing stuff.
Yes, I think it's great, and obviously you've remembered it all these years later. How much fun was it?
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah,
I wonder if
that's really great.
You think they'll
a few years ago? Probably 10 or 15 years ago, I got to go with one of the coolest things I did, and it wasn't a street race, but I went about 120 in a brand new Ford production street Mustang with Carl Edwards around Kansas Speedway for 2 laps. Wow. And I'm looking over, we're right at the safer barrier coming off turn 4 close to the flag stand, and he's driving with one hand, looking at me, talking to me. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, buddy, 2 hands on the wheel here. He was as calm and cool, as collected as he could be. He was probably still, even at 110, 120, he was 60, 70, 80 miles an hour off race pace.
If they really want to localize that, wouldn't it make sense to have Rashee Rice drive the pace car? Around there, that'd be perfect, wouldn't it? No,
Scott Purrier off the top rope.
Except if he crashes, he's walking off the track. I guarantee you that. So, but anyway, no, it should be fun to watch. That's the Fox. So when Fox does that Sunday, who does Vegas?
Well, so Fox has the early part of the contract, and Vegas this week is on FS1, so that's how they'll make that thing happen. So it'll go Fox, and then Amazon will be in the middle, TNT will be in the middle of the schedule, and NBC will wrap it up between themselves and USA. But yeah, Fox is for close to 30 years now. Unfortunately, the race that Dale Earnhardt passed away was Fox's first NASCAR race, and they've had the early season ever since that point.
Trenton, in regards to the street racing that you were talking about, they are moving it from Chicago to California. Why was that, and have these been good attractions for the public?
So I think they were good attractions for the public. Chicago just had, as I know from an alternate situation in life that I work with my wife on, there's a lot of red tape when it comes to dealing with the city of Chicago. I'm just going to throw that on out there. But and I'm sure it's that way in other cities as well. So they just kind of run their course. And Chicago has Chicagoland Speedway that they did not race at the same time they were doing the street race. And so it's back on the schedule in Joliet there about, 45 minutes outside of downtown. So they're going back there. So they'll still serve the race fans in the market. And they're just kind of, I don't know if they're necessarily gimmicky, but I like the fact that NASCAR is trying new things and going to new racetracks. And St. Louis is another one that, St. Louis didn't have cup races for years. And they finally realized they need to get back to some markets that love racing. And St. Louis is a great racing town. And they've really showed out for Gateway for the cup races there. And I think just moving these around is just kind of a further evolution that hey, we're not just stuck doing the same thing that we always did for all these years. That Brian France era that he oversaw NASCAR, I think is probably going to go down as a time that a lot of people won't look at as the glory days of the sport. And it just seemed like you didn't even really have to wait for the schedule to come out because you just knew it was going to be the same 36 races on the schedule at the same places. And all that was ever going to shift was if Easter was early or late and where they took the off. And that's not the case anymore. And I love that they're doing this. And we don't know if San Diego will be a boom or a bust or whatnot, but they've got enough experience with it. I bet they'll figure out how to make it successful.
Very good. Well, T-Bear, as always, appreciate the report, and we'll be watching this weekend so we can ask more dumb questions next Tuesday. Appreciate it.
No, these are great. You guys care about it. I love this, and I love the chance to talk about racing. See you guys next week.
You bet. We'll see you then. Thanks.
Trenton Berry visiting with us. Timeout on the starting lineup, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to The Starting Lineup with Scott Puryear, Ned Reynolds, and Art Haynes on 102.1 The One.